Hi, I'm Francesca Esposito, and I'm an Associate Director at Border Criminologies. And myself and Vicky Cunning, we would like to commemorate the horrendous and avoidable disaster of the 3rd of October 2013, where more than 650 people have lost their lives in the Mediterranean Sea, by highlighting the ongoing implications of deaths at global borders, and particularly in the central Mediterranean Sea. And that is why this week we are running this series, and we are speaking with people who are at the forefront of both crossing borders and providing solidarity and support to border crossers. And we do this as part of a commitment towards critically acknowledging and questioning the violence of borders, while at the same time placing at the center of this debate the voices and resistances of protagonists on the ground. So I'm very happy. Today I have with me Lucia Gennari. Lucia is a lawyer, and she collaborates with the law firm Antartide in Rome, and she is also an activist with the platform Mediterranean Saving Humans. In the last years, Lucia has worked on migrants' rights in Italy and on search and rescue operation activities in the Mediterranean. So thank you, Lucia, for being here with us, and I'll give you the floor so that you can introduce a bit yourself and your work. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, as you said, I'm working as a lawyer on migration issues basically in Rome with the law firm and Antartide with my colleagues. And in the last years, we also focused a lot on the issues connected with externalization processes and migration at sea. And we are working a lot with several NGOs which are present in the Mediterranean and are monitoring and in case assisting people in danger at sea during their crossing through the central Mediterranean.
Yeah, and so maybe I would like to ask you, since you have been engaged on this since quite a long time, what do you think, how do you think the situation in terms of border crossing and control, and particularly in the central Mediterranean region, has been changing in the last 2 or 3 years, in particularly also in light of the global pandemic we are facing?
In general, we can highlight a tendency which has been more or less the same since the last 2 or 3 years. I would say 3 years at least. And I would take as a starting point, although we are speaking about processes which were beginning much more time ago. I'm thinking about the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding between Libya and Italy in February 2017, when we had a left-wing government, let's say. This signature is significant because it shows one of the main aim that have been trying to be built by the European government, the member states government, and the European Union itself, which is really based also on the so-called externalization processes of border controls. And this is one of the main tools that have been used in order to achieve this result, which could theoretically allow European member states to step back in their responsibilities in managing, let's say, the sea border, and having less responsibilities towards people who are in danger at sea. This is only one, let's say, tool that has been used so far. Another one is an attempt to avoid civil society being present at sea, both in collecting information about what happens at sea and also, of course, in intervening to rescue people who are in danger there. And therefore not having the problem, let's say, to disembark these people and then to manage their situation in the European territory. So for what concerns this last point, which is maybe the one for which I am here now, I would say that we need to see the fact that criminalization processes, which led to a more difficult possibility and the diminishing possibilities to be present at sea, started again before the Salvini period, let's say. So in 2016 and 17, and then they progressed in different ways, but still they remain the same. So after, if we make a brief comparison between the Salvini times and now, okay, before there were like an attempt of shouting that, for example, rescue NGOs were very connected with smugglers and they were just finishing their job, or they were creating like this pull factor for migrants to take the risk to go at sea. And so we had the security decrees, the very high sanctions towards ships and captains who were rescuing people. But now we have like 5 or 6 NGO ships blocked, unable to go at sea again in a very less shouted way, but much more effective. And this could be said also for what concerns the relations and with third countries like Libya, and the construction of a system which blocks migrants before their departure or during or right after their departure. So we have like strategies which tend to the same aim. But then I would say that if we look at the situation now, the actual one is much more effective, let's say. And now this is also due to the pandemic, and if you want we can go in this direction, because this has been used also to change some mechanism of border control and again restrictive measures towards rescue NGOs, let's say. And we have situations and the use of some dispositives which were never they would have never been accepted before, and now we have, for example, the quarantine ships, let's say, to make an example.
Yeah, this is very important, and I mean, maybe you are Italian and I'm Italian, so of course there has been a big debate, especially in I mean, among activists and NGOs and I mean lawyers engaged in this field. But maybe I think it's important a little bit to explain this point of the quarantine ships, because maybe not everybody knows about it, and I think it's a very significant shift which has been introduced and justified in the name of the pandemic and of health protection of both migrants and Italian national citizens, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, during the first month of the pandemic, at the beginning of April, 3 or 4 ministries published a decree concerning people who were rescued at sea, by saying that all those people who for all those people who were rescued at sea outside the Italian search and rescue region by non-Italian ships, the Italian ports, all of them, couldn't be considered safe under the law of the sea legislation. And this was based on the fact that in case in Italy we couldn't have been in the position to guarantee sanitary assistance to other people, and this was like a consideration once and for all the duration of the sanitary emergency, which is still going on. And also because the regional sanitary systems of the southern regions, which back then were not under that kind of stress as the northern one, I would underline, couldn't have bared the weight of this kind of new people coming. And so somehow reversing the security, the safety concept of the port of safety, let's say, because usually a place of safety is considered safe for the person who has to disembark and not for the port itself, let's say. So this was also interesting. And after this decree, there was another decree released by the Protezione Civile, civil protection, I don't know, which stated the possibility for these kind of people, and exceptionally also for people who disembarked autonomously in Italy, to use private ships in order to how to say, process the, let's say, quarantine period. Back then and also now, but this kind of legislation changes very fast. So, but anyway, back then, people who were arriving from abroad, they had to be they had to do this voluntary self-isolation period. And I would like to underline the fact that it's very different if I have to go in a hotel or at my place or at some friend's place and stay there. And in case I break this obligation, I get a fine. It's very different than if I'm in a place where I'm totally isolated for the rest of, from the rest of the world. I don't have access, for example, to legal assistance. I don't, especially at the beginning, nobody knew what was going on in these places. There was no way to connect with people there. And so a lot of guarantees maybe could have been not guaranteed. And you are constantly controlled by police forces, for example. And so you physically cannot break this rule because you are not physically able to do that. I think that, of course, it's important that all the sanitary guarantees are in place for everyone, for the health of the individuals and for the health of the community. But there is a clear difference about how these measures are held for foreign people and for European citizens, or in general for there is a difference, maybe also based on juridical status and class, of course, here.
Yeah, so, and no, sorry, go ahead.
So this is one point which is problematical for for us concerning quarantine ship. The other aspect is that there was all the time, also before in the previous year, the attempt to use ships to make all these border procedures. And actually, what we saw is that, for example, a lot of Tunisian citizens who have been in these ships, they just went out the ships with an expulsion decree or a pushback decree, without really having the possibility, for example, to ask for asylum. This is a problem that we tried to underline for hotspots before, but this is maybe even stronger in the case of the use of ships.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think it's really important what you were saying, but because, I mean, it's not even a discrimination between foreign nationals and, I mean, citizens and Italian citizens, because, I mean, many foreign nationals, foreign people who arrive to Italy, for example, by flight, they, I mean, of course, they have to quarantine depending from where they come from, but they have to quarantine in their home, or I mean in the community in some places where they can stay, while I mean here it's really a discrimination against migrants landing on Italian shores and so arriving via the Mediterranean Sea, because it's specifically this provision, it's specifically made for them. So I think it's really concerning and important what you were saying. And also I think it's really important that you were highlighting the continuity of these measures, and somehow you made me think that I mean during the pandemic we witnessed somehow, not a lot in Italy, more in other countries, but maybe a little also in Italy, somehow the release of some people in detention facilities, which was not made in a systematic way in the case of Italy, but still some people were released. But at the same time, the proliferation of unofficial forms of detention, of deprivation of liberty, as you were rightly highlighting, through ships, and also, as you were mentioning, hotspots and other kind of facilities which were suddenly used to quarantine migrant people, and I think it's really important also. I mean, speaking about border violence and this complex apparatus of border control, to reflect on this, because it's something which is happening, has been happening along the years, as you were saying, but in this moment it's even more evident and strong. And I don't know if you want to, yeah.
Yes, totally agree with you. And the ways these kind of measures were actually executed towards migrants, it's really strong. We can also think about like reception centers in the mainland, also in Rome, for example, where when positive cases, COVID cases were detected, led to the like immediate closure of the facility with the army or policemen monitoring these facilities, and also some episodes of violence happened during times. There is like a clear difference between how measures have been developed towards foreign citizens, say migrants, let's say, and the citizens. Of course, we all experimented very hard measures, let's say, but in the same time, we cannot avoid seeing that it has been there had been a big difference. And also, to go back to the ships, I would say that this is something that one of these exceptional measures that we fear can be become like structural in the future and normalized also by law, and also, for example, extended to other countries. Like I heard that also in Malta they are thinking to set up a similar system for disembarked, let's say, rescued people, and so probably this is something that we will have to deal with in the future.
Yeah. I mean, since you mentioned speaking about the future, in light, I mean, because this series, of course, we want to analyze, as I was saying, what is happening and the geographies of violence of the European border apparatus. But at the same time, I think it's important to focus on resistance which is taking place at the moment, has been taking place in the last few years, and also how we can move forward in terms of resistance. And so, yeah.
It's a good question. From our side, I would say, like lawyers working in this field, I think it's really important to imagine legal strategies to shed light on the contradictions that the system now is like producing, and this double standard of right protections that we witness. For example, there had been several international courts decisions, or which has been highly criticized for the approach toward migration issues, let's say. And I think that in this moment it would be really, really important not to give up on soliciting these international and also national bodies in order to let them express on the violation that we think are in place. If we think about, I don't know, the Greek situation, this is super clear. But also just keeping like rescued people at sea for days or weeks. If we think about the Maersk Etienne case, where this very huge tanker ship was blocked for more than 1 month with 27 person on board, with so very few people, let's say, and wasn't able to disembark them in Malta, which was the responsible state for the search and rescue region where this episode happened, and anyway, at least for what we know, coordinated even the case. This is also really how do you say, like it's a very serious violation of human rights of people who were rescued, and also of the rights of the seafarers in general. So it's not admissible that this kind of situation happened and discourage, for example, private companies to rescue, without even speaking about the blockade of the civil society ships.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, and I think it's important since, as you were describing, and also thinking, for example, about the situation even here in the UK, what is happening in the Channel with Channel crossing. I think states and governments around the world, they are kind of exchanging knowledge about efficient practices of border control and of repression of migrants and securitization. And I think it's important on the other side, as you were saying, that we also, civil society activists, human rights advocates, we also start to think transnationally and exchange our knowledge in order also to be able to efficiently and effectively tackle and fight against these change and these practices which are becoming harsher and more repressive as we go forward. So yeah.
Yes, totally. And yeah, also the majority of these practices, without like excluding national states' responsibilities, but they come from at least a general idea, which is a European idea, at least in the sense of coming from some European institutions, and first of all, the European Commission. And so I also think that also on resistance practices level, it's very important that we are working together. And I think that, for example, what the so-called civil fleet is doing is also this, like showing that there is like a transnational level of cooperation in being present at sea, and at the end of the day, we are speaking of a very basic issue, which is saving life at sea. So a very, very basic demand, life death. And now, of course, we know that this is a very, it has become a very political issue, and therefore also the practices of like the simple practice of doing this has a very important and strong political meaning, which reflects its effects also on a juridical level, showing that this political meaning can influence a lot, not only the state practices, but also the jurisdictional decisions in bad and good, in a bad and good way, let's say. Yeah, so yeah, I think that for us, so keeping supporting both migrants' right and the rescuers' right, it's still very crucial.
Yeah. And I think the two things go hand in hand, because border control is not something that only migrant people are affected. And I mean, border control is something that causes harm and has consequence for migrants, for their families, for communities at large, for us all. So I think their rights are completely connected also to our rights. And when we see an erosion and an attack towards their rights, there is also, and the case of, I think, the Mediterranean Sea and I mean, the civil society fleets well exemplify this. There is also an attack and an erosion against our rights, like citizens' rights and civil society rights. So
yes, totally. Especially in a moment where we experimented what does it mean to be deprived of our mobility and our right of movement, freedom of movement. So this is on one hand this, but on the other one, I think that if we accept to establish a system where we clearly have differentiate, like a difference in the possibility to exert our own rights according to a category of people you belong, then I think that's also from this very simple fact we are affected by this kind of policies.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucia, and has been really important. I think the insights you provided to this, I mean, in this conversation and to this series. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.